All right, we are back here on the Just End Suffering podcast, talking college basketball once again. A big college episode. We did a chat with Zach Braziller earlier in the podcast. Now I'm being joined by our chief college basketball correspondent, the host of the Seeing Red podcast, Troy Mauriello is here. Troy, how are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. Pleasure to be on once again, talking college hoops.
And as our patron St. John Rothstein would say, this is March.
This is March. It's kind of fitting, we're doing this on March 1st, right? It's a good way to bring in the best month of the year, in my opinion, and certainly the best month in college basketball. Looking forward to the next 30 something days. Can't wait to get this tournament started.
Yeah, and this is the month of the Just End Suffering podcast. Troy comes the unofficial co-host of the podcast. We're talking every single week about college basketball. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, very excited for that as well. And it's gonna be a fun ride. It was a fun ride last year for sure. And they call it March Madness for a reason. It's going to be a lot of epic games, starting with the conference tournaments next week, and then we get into the big tournament the week after that. So really excited to hop on again for a second year.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got a little preview of it last weekend, especially on Saturday, because the first time ever, the top 6 teams in the AP poll all lost on the road. 7 Texas Tech fell as well, and literally just absolute insanity on Saturday. I mean, the polls, there was a little bit of a shuffling of the deck a little bit, but nobody really moved in or out of the poll. But this goes to show you, this is going to be a really unpredictable tournament.
Yeah, exactly. I think we might have said this the last time I spoke that, last year kind of felt like there was maybe like 2 or 3 teams that could really win it all. This year, it feels kind of wide open. And you saw that on Saturday, like you mentioned, with 7 top 10 teams going down. We've never seen that in a day. In the NCAA tournament, I don't think anyone's safe, as it's been in other years as well. A 1 seed, a 2 seed doesn't really seem to matter. There's a lot of parity, especially at the top of teams that could get knocked off. So yeah, this year, especially more so than really any other year, I think it's really wide open, I would say, for like 10 to maybe 15 teams that could win it all, which you can't say every year. And that just makes it even more exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to sort of touch on one thing that sort of slipped through the radar here, because between the Super Bowl and the lockout situation, you're not getting a chance to talk about the top 16 seed reveal last week. And the NCAA did this a week later because they want to compete with the Super Bowl, which obviously makes sense. We got a lot of information there. We had our top 4 seeds at the time being Gonzaga, Auburn, Arizona, and Kansas. We had a couple surprise teams sneak in there. We had a couple surprise omissions. Houston normally did not get in the top 16. So when you saw this, what did you take away from what we learned?
Yeah, it's like you and I were talking. Like it seemed like they were really prioritizing, the metrics and the quads and who had more impressive quad 1 results. That's the biggest thing that I took out of it. Again, it's just a preview. Obviously, they're gonna change it all. That was 2 weeks ago now. At this point, it's not really a reflection of what Selection Sunday is going to look like. It's just a good thing to talk about, though. But yeah, the metrics and all that is always, I think, more important to the selection committee, which is good to see. Like you mentioned, nothing really crazy surprising, I wouldn't say, out of that. And it's all going to change. It all probably changed in 2 days later, so it's not the biggest thing in the world, but it was definitely interesting, and it was a nice little taste of what we're going to see about a month from then.
Yeah, I always watch that because I'm not as much paying attention to who the top 16 are, because obviously that fluctuate and those things probably going to determine anyway. I always listen to what the selection committee chair says in terms of like what their guidelines are. The thing that jumped at me and glaring my rights was quad one wins. Providence and Wisconsin got higher seeds in their metrics in the game because they had good quad 1 wins. Kansas and Baylor, I think, has put them on the top of teams like Kentucky where the quad 1 wins. So that's what I always look for. I can extrapolate it down to the bubble and say, if I'm down the bubble and I'm, have like a 2-9 record in quad 1, I should be a little concerned.
Exactly. That can kind of give you a little bit of an insight as to where they're going to go for lower seeds or lower seeded teams, what they're going to do at the top. One other thing that was interesting too was Villanova being put in the region that could have had them playing second weekend games in Philadelphia. That was really surprising as well. And I believe they said that the reason that was because the Wells Fargo Center is not technically their home arena. We've never seen a team play that close to home in the second weekend. It would be interesting to see if it actually ends up happening with Villanova playing in Philly in the second weekend. I can't see them, even if it is technically allowed, I can't see them allowing Villanova to play what would essentially be home games in the Sweet 16 and possibly Elite 8 if it comes down to that.
I do think they do it though, because they said that at the time, like, they value geography, and Jay Wright made sure he didn't schedule more than 3 games at the Wells Fargo Center this year. I think the previous 2 years they play about like 14 there. So they know they're playing by the rules, and they know that the committee favors geography. I mean, we've seen it play out like unintended. I mean, Kansas is going to play in Kansas City a couple of years ago before they lost to Auburn in the second round. So it's not like unprecedented.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me, like a home arena like that. But it's a good job by Villanova, right? I mean, kind of messing with their schedule a little bit to play more of those games on Finneran Pavilion on campus rather than playing at the Wells Fargo Center. It's a good job by them, and it could end up giving them a pretty big advantage, I would think, if it does come down to that, and they do get to play in Philly, where they're playing, I would say, again, basically a home game.
Yeah, I also give the committee credit. I mean, understand that the first two rounds you want to put a team close to home. I get it, and you want to reward them for not having to travel as much. But like, I think the second weekend we saw this, I think, a bit back in 2014 when UConn somehow was the 7th seed, had home court advantage, basically MSG in the regionals. Like, ended up going on to win the national championship. Like, that to me bothers me because like if you're that close, you shouldn't be getting priority over a team that's higher seed than you.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're going to give any, you really shouldn't be giving a lot of teams priority in the second weekend. I would say you should try to lay off of that. But if you are going to do it, you want to do it for the higher seeds. Yeah, it's something like that isn't exactly fair to anyone giving a lower seed like that. So hopefully we don't see that this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's go talk a little big picture here in terms of some teams right now that are going in the right direction. So who right now, give me a couple of teams you feel like are playing really, really well as we head to March.
Yeah, I'm going to start. Well, I'm going to start first of all with Providence. I'm going to stick in the Big Ten or Big East. I'm a Big East guy. They lost a couple of weeks ago to Villanova. They got the rematch with Villanova tonight. But credit to them, man. First ever Big East regular season title. Ed Cooley, in my opinion, I don't even think this is a hot take. He's the coach of the year in college basketball for what he's done with that roster from where they were picked to start the season to where they are now, a top 10 team. Like I said, team that has won the Big East regular season title. Now the Big East is more of a conference tournament title conference. I would say you remember the conference tournament winners more so than the regular season winners, but that's a heck of an accomplishment for a Providence team that has not had all this history of winning Big East regular season crowns. So that would be one for sure. You got to go with Arkansas as well, right? I mean, what have they won? 13 out of 14 or something like that. They knocked off Kentucky. They knocked off Auburn a couple of weeks ago as well. It looked like their season was going to kind of go off the rails when they started SEC play, I believe 0-3. And then since then, they've just been on a tear. I didn't see that coming at all from them, but they've really, really turned their season around for Musselman and those guys. So, and they look like they're headed towards, a top 3 or 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. And then I'm going to go with Baylor as my last one as well. What a 48 hours for Baylor, right? From Saturday night, getting that revenge on Kansas, doing a great job getting their win back there. And then on Monday night, they go on the road against Texas, in kind of a ugly, like not great styled game, but they end up getting the win. 2 really nice wins in 48 hours for them. Kind of an under the radar team, I would say at this point. It sounds kind of funny to say they're the defending national champs, but I don't know if they're getting like that national press that maybe they were last year at this time when they were kind of one of 2 teams that could have won it all. But I think they're in the conversation for sure as a team that could certainly go back to back here. And they've kind of flown, in my opinion, they've kind of flown a little bit under the radar this season.
Yeah, I'll throw 3 more out there in terms of teams that are on the way up. I think Tennessee, also out of the SEC, they've been trending the right direction for a little bit. I mean, they've won the only 2 losses over the last, I say, month and a half have been a 1-pointer to Texas. They should have really come back and won that game. And then they lost at Arkansas by 10. They stress they have wins against Auburn, win against Kentucky. They beat LSU. They beat Florida. They have some good wins in there. Murray State out of the OVC. I mean, they went undefeated in their conference, 28-2. Like,
yeah,
they're going to the tournament. Like, they got in the polls. They're going in. That's really exciting to see them. And very quietly, Duke has won 10 of 11. The loss came on a buzzer beating 3 by Royce Beekman. So, like, all now, the Blue Devils are trending in the right direction.
They definitely are. They definitely are. And, they got a big game coming up this weekend. I'm sure we're going to get to that in a second with, Coach K's final game. But Duke is absolutely, in that conversation for a team that could win it all. I don't think that's, a crazy thought at all. And what a fitting end that would be, right, for Coach K's final season to go out on top. It would just seem to make sense. And Duke definitely has the manpower to do it this year.
Yeah, one of the pro out here, I forgot to mention them. I said I did. St. Mary's out of the WCC.
Big win for them.
Big win, beat Gonzaga, and they're a team that you do not want to see on the other side of you in the bracket. They are very dangerous.
And we've talked all year about that conference, how impressive it's been this season. Yeah, what a win for them. I mean, they controlled that entire game against Gonzaga. That was really impressive performance by them. And, they certainly look like they're a team that, yeah, like you said, they're going to be difficult for really any higher seeded team to play. They're definitely a candidate, I would say, for someone that could like pick off a higher seed in the second round of the NCAA tournament.
All right, let's go the other way. Who is going the wrong direction now as March approaches? Couple teams.
I'm gonna stick. I'm gonna stick in. I'm gonna stick in the Big East again for this one. The Xavier Musketeers have just completely went the other way. They were ranked at one point this season. Looked like they're still probably going to be a tournament team, but looked like they would be up there. In maybe a top 6 seed or something like that. They've actually lost 4 in a row. They've lost 6 of 7. They lost to my St. John's team a couple of weeks ago. Then fell to UConn Providence and Seton Hall at home over the weekend. Again, just a team that's going way far in the wrong direction. They're probably going to still be an NCAA tournament team. I'm not really seeing them on the bubble. They had a couple of nice wins in non-conference play. They knocked off Ohio State in non-conference, which I think is going to help them a lot. The metrics love them as well. They're probably in, like I said, but they kind of ruined their chance at getting maybe a higher seed in the NCAA tournament. They kind of need to really finish this regular season strong. They have 2 winnable games against my St. John's and then against Georgetown. Go into the Big East tournament, try to make a little bit of a run in the Big East tournament to get some momentum for the NCAA tournament, because right now Xavier is, like I said, trending completely in the wrong direction this season. And then the second team that I have is a team that was, I would say, trending completely the right direction a couple of weeks ago, and since then has kind of gone the other way again, and that's Rutgers. Rutgers picked up 4 straight top 25 wins. Unprecedented to do that. Now, obviously, they weren't going to keep that up. They play in the Big Ten. It's an incredibly tough conference, but just feels like a missed opportunity the last week or so for them. Losing that game against Purdue, falling at Michigan, and then a big missed opportunity this weekend against Wisconsin in a winnable game. I was watching that whole game. They had right there that whole game. Could have closed it out. They could not do it. Missed opportunity there, and now they go into a huge game. I believe it's tomorrow night against at Indiana in what's like kind of a bubble elimination game in a way. I mean, the loser isn't out, but the winner is certainly going to be on the right side of the bubble. I'm seeing Rutgers in that like last 4 in, first 4 out category. It just feels like if they could have got maybe one of these last 3 games, they would be more securely in. Their non-conference is what kills them. Of course, they have those losses to Lafayette, and I believe UMass beat them as well. That's why they had so much work to do in the Big Ten, and they did a lot of work, but they still have more work to do. And it just feels like a missed opportunity this last week after they had such a crazy run of 4 straight wins over top 25 opponents before that.
Yeah, I mean, they also did beat Purdue earlier in the season, which also helped them. But I mean, you're right. I talked to Zach Brazil earlier in the show about Rutgers, and he's correct to point out, like, they really cannot afford to go like more than like lose 2 games down the stretch. And that was before the Wisconsin game they lost. I mean, you look at not even the ones out of the league. They also lost at DePaul, which is not great.
Yeah.
In the league, they lost at Penn State. They lost at Minnesota. They lost to Maryland at home. They lost Northwestern overtime. Those are going to kill you.
Yeah, they have one of the strangest resumes that you'll see this season, because like you mentioned, they have 4 or 5 just brutal losses, but then 4 or 5 really great wins. And that's what lands you really square on the bubble going into conference tournaments.
Yeah, and Zach Brazil mentioned this game as well. I'm going to point out here too. Tomorrow night, Rutgers at Indiana, a huge game on the bubble.
Yeah. I mean, almost not necessarily an elimination game, I wouldn't say. But, man, the winner of that game is going to be in a great spot, and the loser of that game is going to have a lot of work to do. If you're Rutgers, you're saying, man, we've lost 3 straight. We're going a little bit in the wrong direction, but we got a chance to really make it all up here and to put ourselves on the right side of the bubble going into the conference tournament if we can get a big road win over an Indiana team that is right on the bubble just like them.
I'm going to throw a couple of teams out also I think is trending the wrong direction. I think Auburn, obviously, the losses are not great, but the way they've like struggled on the road in the SEC is a little concerning. I'll throw them out here. UCLA has really kind of slid down the cliff a little bit. They were a point, I thought they're back in number 3. You thought they're going to take off, and now they've basically lost a game a week for the last few weeks. It's down to 17 in the polls. And Michigan State, prior to beating Purdue, lost 5 of 6, and that team has turnover issues. And that's going to be probably like a 7 seed for Tom Izzo's team. And like, I would not be surprised if they're 1 and done too in the tournament.
Absolutely. And I want to touch on Auburn and UCLA as well. Auburn, they were never going to keep that run of play going. But yeah, like you said, just the manner that they've lost these games, it hasn't really been all that inspiring. And UCLA, man, like I'm still high on them. I still think that they're a team that could at least go to the Final Four and probably win it all. But they just haven't looked great. Like you mentioned, they've lost some weird games. Lost to Oregon last week. They got a big game coming up this weekend, I know, against USC. But yeah, they just haven't felt like they've clicked maybe as much as you would have liked them to all season long. That's why they're down to, I think, number 17 in the country right now. But I'm still high on UCLA. I still think they have that pedigree from last season. They know that they can do it in March. I still think that they should be considered among that group that can win a national title because they have the talent, they have the top dog that can do it in the NCAA tournament. Despite their recent struggles, I'm still in on UCLA. Maybe I'm on an island there. I still like them.
Yeah, I think I'm there with you. I do like them. Like, it's probably the only word I have with them is like, are they waiting to turn the light switch on? And then are they waiting too long to get themselves into prime form?
Mm-hmm. That's the concerning thing. You're absolutely right. They did it last year, right? So maybe their mentality all regular season is like, hey, we weren't that great last year during the regular season. We turned it on in the NCAA tournament. Maybe we can do that again. But sometimes, as we know, that switch doesn't turn so easily. So it'll be very, very interesting to watch them their first game or two in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and you mentioned championship week earlier. We're going to be back next week to talk about all the big conference tournaments here. But some of the little guys have started early. I mean, the WCC starts this week, OVC starts this week, Arch Madness is this week, and you got to watch some of these smaller leagues for potential for the bid thieves to come in here, especially if you're one of the teams on the bubble like a Rutgers, like a Michigan, Indiana. You're sitting there. You want as many of those teams that would steal your bids to take care of business in the conference tournament here. So, like, in terms of potential bid thieves, what leagues are you looking at?
Yeah, well, it's like you mentioned with Murray State. If someone could come in and knock them off because they're in the tournament as an at large. So if someone can knock them off, that's one right there that would kill these bubble teams because that's obviously a clear bid stealer, someone that was not going to go in. Some of these smaller leagues, I believe, who is it? South Dakota State is unbeaten in league. If someone comes in there and knocks them off, that's one as well. These smaller leagues that maybe aren't necessarily that certainly aren't two bid leagues, but that have a team that has a clear path to a at large bid. You want to avoid those. So yeah, those are the two big ones. And then I mean, even looking at these bigger conferences like the ACC, we've killed on the ACC all season long on this podcast. Like they're all so mediocre in that conference that I could see one of them going on a run and playing Duke in the final and picking off Duke in a one-game situation and like stealing a bid there. Someone that was maybe on the bubble and kind of propelling themselves. I don't see any like Georgetowns or Oregon States like we saw last year, but I could just weirdly see something like that with the ACC where something weird happens in that tournament because like we've said all season long, that league is just so average this year that it's going to be all these average teams battling each other with Duke at the top. Wouldn't shock me if that type of scenario happened where you got kind of a team lower in that league making a run.
Yeah, the ACC is one I definitely have circled on the calendar to like watch here because obviously Duke is in, Wake is in, Notre Dame probably is in. Then you're looking at a big bubble, sort of lower tier bubble teams of like Miami's probably in, North Carolina we complain about a lot. They don't actually do anything. They could actually get hot and win this thing. Virginia Tech, Virginia, like all these want them to have a hot week and knock off Duke, and then they're in, somebody else is out.
Exactly. Yeah. And when the whole conference is kind of in that same zone, I would say it really comes down to, one of them is going to get through to the final. You would assume Duke is going to get there. And then it comes down to a one game playoff, I guess, almost to see if they can, get that auto bid like we've seen some teams do in the past in these bigger conferences.
Yeah, I'll throw a couple other leagues out here too. I think the WCC, if Gonzaga or St. Mary's do not win, I feel like that quads a bid thief because San Francisco is definitely on the bubble. They're probably on the right side of it right now. They, especially, or BYU, if they manage to get hot and win the thing, that's a bid taken away. Missouri Valley with Loyola Chicago not being in the top seed. If they get to the conference final and lose, I think they are still going to get in because their resume is good enough. I also throw out here Conference USA. I'm watching North Texas because they have been so dominant in the league that if they just get to their final and lose, I think they could be strongly considered for an at-large bid. And the last but not least, the American, because Houston is in, then you have Memphis and SMU as true bubble teams. If one of them gets the auto bid, let's take your spot away from someone.
And one other too, the A10. There's so many A10 teams on the bubble or around the bubble right now. If one of them can win that conference tournament, steal an auto bid as well. That's another conference with a bunch of teams. It's like right at on the bubble, last four in, first four out. If one of them can win that tournament as well, that's something else to watch.
Yeah, I think of the A10s, he's like Davis is probably the closest to an at-large bid. I think they probably would get one if they get like decently far into that tournament.
Yeah.
They do have that
I
win.
agree.
That went over Alabama on the road, which certainly helps. But I think like about like Dayton, VCU, St. Bonaventure, there's a lot of talented teams in that league that can make a run.
Exactly. Yeah. That's actually going to be a really fun conference tournament because that's a lot of, they got a lot of like decent, like we said, bubble teams that, are right there on the edge. So that'll be actually a really fun conference tournament. The A10 tournament is always fun, but that one will actually be really fun to watch.
You know where it is this year? Because I know that the ACC took Barclays this year.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, it might be in DC actually. I think it's in Washington DC. I'm not 100%, but I'm like 90% sure that it's in Washington DC.
All right, so that's good. That's good to know because I know that Zach Brazil made the point that the ACC is coming here next week is the JV tournament, the Big East tournament.
I don't get why these conferences do that. Like, especially, I mean, they couldn't have planned this in advance, but this is Coach K's, last ACC tournament. These are going to be his last couple of games. You would presume that they're going to make a pretty far run in that. Why would you not put that in Greensboro like they always do, or like they have in other years? And I mean, you're going to sell out either way. But, the atmosphere just seems to be way better if it would be, in North Carolina where it should be, not up here in Brooklyn where, no one locally really cares about the ACC tournament. They're going to sell it out, of course, because it's Coach K's, farewell. But yeah, I don't get why they would come here. Why any of these, the Big Ten, when they came to the Garden a couple of years ago, just doesn't make sense to me.
And the Big Ten came a week early. Had to spend on the sideline for a week because the Big East had the rights that last week before the tournament started. So that would also make no sense.
I almost didn't hate that one as much though, because it was, I mean, there was other conference tournaments going on, but they were almost like kind of standalone games. So it actually was kind of cool to see that, but it still made no sense to put the Big Ten tournament a week early. Yeah, and I hope they don't do that again.
All right. Also, back by popular demand after the last podcast, we're going to play the blind resume game because the bubble is such a mess. It's a very thin bubble. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. Yeah, there's a lot of average teams this year.
All right. So last time I made some fancy graphics for it. This time I got to save some time here by checking out my friends over at Bracketologist.com, which they have this very fancy feature here to compare resumes. And you can do it blind. So I'm putting up on the screen for the YouTube version. So we're looking here at, I have 5 scenarios up here. 3 have 2 teams, 1 has 3, and 1 has 4. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at these. I'm going to get your take on these teams, and you're going to tell me who gets through for you. So scenario number 1 here. Team A, their net is 26. Their overall record is 19-7. They are 13-1 at home. They are 5-1 on the road, 2-1 on neutral courts, 4-7 in quadrant 1 here. And Team B, 39th overall in the net. They are 40 in KenPom. The other team's 22 in KenPom. Strength of record 27th. They're 22-8 overall, 15-2 at home, 7-3 on the road, 0-3 on neutral floors, 1-7 against quad 1. They have a quad 4 loss, which Team A does not have. So of these 2 teams, who are you taking?
I am definitely taking Team A in this one. All of the metrics basically favor them. I like that they have the 4 quad 1 wins as opposed to Team B's only 1 quad 1 win. And that quad 4 loss as well compared to the no quad 4 losses for Team A. I'm definitely going to go with Team A in this one.
All right, so you're going with Team A here. So we're going to go ahead and turn the light on here and see what we learned that here. And Team A is San Diego State, who picked up the big win last night over Wyoming. And Team B is our favorite punching bag, North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, this one's not even close. I mean, it's like San Diego State. Look at that resume. They got a much better resume than North Carolina. I mean, you and I have been on North Carolina all season long. Look at that resume. It's not that impressive. I mean, I guess the net is okay, but a quad 4 loss. Who's that to Pitt? They got the 1 quad 1 win at this point. Nothing about North Carolina's resume is really all that important. Or all that impressive, I should say. They're probably going to end up getting in, but they just don't have an impressive resume.
And it's funny because certain bracketologists, who we are not going to name names here, have North Carolina safely in the field, while San Diego State's like a last 14 in, which I think makes no sense.
Makes no sense at all. I think those guys have an agenda for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of money involved in that one. I would say.
Yeah.
Corporate interest involved with this. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to go to our next one here. I'm going to share the screen again. This is blind resume pick number 2. And the strength schedule numbers are not updated. That's why they're not in here. But I'm going to say here, Team A, a net of 58. They are 64 in KenPom. They are 17-11 overall, 12-5 at home, 5-3 on the road, 0-3 neutral sites, 3-6 in quad one, 4-2 in quad two, 3-3 in quad three. Then team B here, net of 82. They have a 75 in Ken Palm. They are 16-12 overall, 13-3 at home, 3-9 on the road, 5-5 in quad one, 3-4 in quad two, 2-2 in quad three, and 6-1 in quad four. So there are 3 losses below quad two. So with these resumes, which one would you like?
The metrics all seem to favor team A. Team B though has that really impressive 5-5 quad one record. 8-9 in the top, or 8 wins in the top 2 quadrants. I'm actually going to go with Team B here. The metrics don't seem to favor them as much, but the 5 quad wins as opposed to the 3 quad one wins for Team A. They do have the quad 4 loss, but I'm going to go with Team B here, actually.
All right. So for Team B, you picked Rutgers over Oregon.
I had a feeling it was Rutgers. Yes. Yeah, they have the strangest resume in the world, Rutgers, right now. The net obviously is where it's at because they lost so many. I think their net was like 230 or something, or something incredibly low in like January. So it shows the work that they've done this season. And yeah, Oregon, they're right there. They got a couple of quad one wins. Obviously, they have the better metrics, of course. But I would actually take Rutgers here. I'm happy with that pick.
The thing I think that draws my attention here is why I would have leaned towards Oregon here is this away record here where Rutgers is 3-9 away from Jersey Mike's Arena and Oregon is 5-3 on the road in their game. So they're not playing the NCAA tournament at Jersey Mike's Arena, which is something you have to consider with Rutgers.
Yeah, it's definitely a good point. They have not really picked up that signature, a really impressive road win. They got a chance to do it though, against Indiana coming up.
All right, let's go ahead now. We're going to blind resume number 3. I always love this game. This game is so much fun.
I love it.
And
I love the reveals.
The reveals are fun. I like that they have the little eye
yeah,
so you can see what's going on here. So let's go ahead to team number 3 and prediction number 3 here. So
okay,
we are Team A. The net is 37. Ken Palm is 38. They are 15-12 overall. 9-4 at home, 4-7 on the road, 2-1 in neutral sites, 4-8 in quad 1, 2-3 in quad 2, 5-1 in quad 3. Team B, a net of 43. The Ken Palm of 42. They are 18-10 overall, 14-3 at home, 3-7 on the road, 1-0 neutral sites, 3-6 in quad 1, 3-4 in quad 2. A perfect 4-0 in quad 3, 8-0 in quad 4. So of these two teams, who are you taking?
The metrics are all relatively similar. They obviously favor Team A in this one, but they're very, very close here. Team A is 15-12 overall. The quad 1 wins. They have the one more quad 1 win, but they've had 3 more opportunities in quad 1 games. The quad 1 and 2 wins are actually the same. I'm going to take I'm going to take Team B in this one over Team A. I tend to not want to put a 15-12 team in the NCAA tournament. So I'm going to take Team B.
And funny enough, these teams are both in the same conference. Team A is Michigan and Team B is Indiana.
Yeah, I would go Indiana over Michigan right now. Michigan's they've got 12 losses right now. They're 3 games over 500. Obviously, we'll see how they finish out the season, but I don't like putting teams that are only a few games over 500 in the tournament. And like I said, the metrics are very, very close in this one as well.
One thing I think is also hurting that our exercise here is that for some reason Bracketologist.com not have these strength of schedule figures in there, and Indiana isn't non-conference schedule is terrible.
Yeah, that is also true. So maybe that would have swayed the decision a little bit. But I mean, the rest of the metrics are very, very close for these two.
All right, so now we're going to go ahead to a 3-team comparison here. So Team A, Team B, and Team C. We're going to pick one of these to put through. Team A net of 47, 58 in Ken Palm. They are 20-7 overall, 14-0 at home, 6-5 on the road, 0-2 on neutral sites. They're 2-2 in quad 1, 4-3 in quad 2, 7-1 in quad 3, and 7-1 in quad 4. Team B, a net of 49. They're 50th in Ken Palm. They are 18-9 overall, 11-4 at home, 4-4 on the road, 3-1 neutral sites, 5-6 in quad 1, 4-3 in quad 2, 3-0 in quad 3, 6-0 quad 4. Last but not least, Team C, 51 net, 54 Ken Palm. They are fifth. They are 18-11 overall, 12-4 at home, 3-6 on the road, 3-1 neutral sites, 2-8 against quad one, 4-2 against quad two, and they have a loss in quad four. So if you're picking one of these teams, who are you taking?
Team B in this one is the only one that is without a quad four loss. Team A has a quad three loss as well. Team B in the first two quadrants has 9 wins. Teams A and C only have 6 each. The metrics are all very, very similar here. So I would go with Team B with that impressive quad one record. I would take Team B here.
All right. So to clarify here, Team B is TCU, Team A is SMU out of the American, and Team C is Florida.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah, I'm a, like we said, we've seen that they kind of favor the quad one wins. That 5-6 quad one record is impressive. That or 5 quad one wins is very impressive. When you got 9 wins in the first 2 quadrants, that impresses me. You know, and that definitely moves me more. And they have really avoided that bad loss with no losses in the final 2 quadrants either.
Yeah, and I will also point out here they have 2 games in a row with Kansas because they have the COVID makeup in there, so they could even add another quad one win to that ledger.
Yeah, it's opportunities as well. Yeah, and that's an impressive resume for TCU. I actually didn't think it would look that good.
Yeah, Florida doesn't look as good when you look at it up close.
Yeah, yeah. Compared to these other two, Florida looks like the clear third team in this as well with the quad 4 loss with the 2-8 quad one record. Yeah, when you compared to these two, Florida does not look good at all.
No, they got to beat Kentucky this weekend.
That's a huge game for them.
All right. The last one here, a 4-team extravaganza. We're going to pick 2 teams out of these 4 to go to the field. So, Team A, they're 28th in the net, 24th in Ken Palm. They are 22-8 overall, 12-4 at home, 7-2 on the road, 3-2 neutral sites, 3-5 in quad one, 5-2 in quad. So they do a quad 4 loss. Team B, a net of 31. They are 29 in Ken Palm. They are 21-7, 11-2 at home, 8-3 on the road, 2-2 neutral sites, 3-2 quad one, 2-4 quad two, 7-1 in quad three. No quad 4 losses. Team C, net of 41, Ken Palm of 35, 17-9 overall, 12-2 at home, 4-6 on the road, 1-1 neutral sites, 3-3 quad one, 3-4 quad two, 7-2 in quad three. So a couple of quad 3 losses. Team D, 62 overall, 63 and 62 in the net, 63 Ken Palm. They are 29 overall, 10-5 at home, 8-2 on the road, 2-2 in neutral sites, 4-1 in quad one games, 4-5 in quad two. They have 3 losses in quadrant 3. So this is a very complicated puzzle. Try and pick 2 out of.
Team A is going to get in for sure. They have that net of 28. That's when you got a top 30 net, that really plays in your favor. I know that they have the quad 4 loss, but 8 wins in the top 2 quadrants. So I would pick Team A for sure. And then in the other 2, man, it's tough. I mean, Team D has those 3 quad 3 losses. They've got eight wins in the first 2 quadrants, but 3 losses in quad 3, which is I'm sure hurting their net. But you know what? I still value the quad 1 and 2 wins. So despite having a couple of bad losses, I might even go Team D here. So I'm definitely going Team A, and then it's really a toss up the other 3. I guess that's why we play the game. But I guess I'd go Team D as well.
All right. So Team A is San Francisco. Team D is the Miami Hurricanes.
Oh no, we picked an ACC school. This is so not on brand for us to do. I feel a little embarrassed in myself now that I picked an ACC team.
The other 2 teams, Team B is Loyola Chicago, and Team C is Memphis.
Yeah, I didn't think San Francisco's net would be that high either, but they got those. I mean, they got 8 wins in the first 2 quadrants. Looking at the teams, I would say probably San Francisco and Loyola Chicago should be in. Maybe Memphis, but yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that I picked Miami actually.
Yeah, well, they have the 8-2 road record also pops too when you look at it.
Yeah, yeah, that resume is not. I mean, the quad 3 losses are what brings down the net, of course, but that resume is not as bad as I maybe thought it was going to be, which I guess is why I picked it. But I think San Francisco, look at that resume. That's an impressive resume for them.
I would take all 4 of these teams over North Carolina in the tournament.
Yeah. Oh, I agree too. Yeah. I mean, just look at the quad 1 and 2 for all 4 of these teams. Loyola's got the least wins with 5 combined. The other 2 have 8 and 6. Yeah, if you value the performance in these quad 1 and 2 games, all of those teams should be in over UNC for sure.
Absolutely. That's the blind resume game for today. So that was certainly a lot of fun. And now we
Mhm.
got a last week of college basketball ahead of us here. So what are you looking forward to this week? What are you looking forward to ahead of the conference tournaments?
Yeah, Saturday, the last Saturday of the regular season, it's going to be some huge games for some teams. We mentioned Florida, huge game for them against Kentucky. A game that they really need to bolster that tournament resume. Indiana, same thing. They got the big game against Rutgers coming up. They can win that. They go on the road against Purdue. That's two huge opportunities for Indiana to strengthen that resume a little bit and to try to lock up. And I mean, if they go 2-0, they're probably in the NCAA tournament this week. So we'll see about that. And then of course Duke and UNC. But the nightcap. I'm a big West Coast guy. I'm a big late night guy. USC, UCLA. Chance for UCLA to prove something to me here. Like I said, I've been high on them all season long. This is a chance for them to get a nice win over a USC team that's ranked right there with them at the top of the big Pac-12. I've been high on UCLA all season long. Really would like them to show me something on Saturday late night against USC.
Yeah, I'll throw also tonight on day of recording the podcast. It's going to be out in your feeds a little later here that we do have basically two de facto conference title games type for the regular season. You have Purdue and Wisconsin in the Big Ten. You have Arizona, USC out in the Pac-12. So those two regular season crowns will be decided tonight.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that Big Ten game tonight. Big game.
Yeah, that's at 9 o'clock. Arizona's at 11 o'clock. And I will say on the weekend too, some Arizona, I mean, Arkansas and Tennessee to be fun on Saturday. It's a good game there. And I think in terms of just the Big Ten here, Michigan's got a huge week ahead of them. They got Michigan State coming in tonight. They got Iowa coming in on Thursday. They got Ohio State coming in over the weekend. So they can go 2-1 on that thing. I think they're a good spot ahead of the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, they need two wins there to really put themselves in a good spot. I would say if they can go 2-1, like you said, that's a big boost for them. And of course, we got to touch on Coach K's final regular season game at Cameron Indoor against UNC. Of course, fittingly against UNC. I'm not the biggest Duke fan. I'm not the biggest Coach K fan, but that's definitely going to be something to watch. Seeing the tributes to him and seeing their final game going up against our favorite team, North Carolina.
Yeah, against our boys.
Yeah, exactly. That would be so fitting for North Carolina actually to beat Duke in that game after what we've seen from them all season long. They go on the road in Coach K's last game and knock off Duke.
I will say though, if they win that game, they're in the tournament, regardless of what they do in the ACC.
Yeah,
Because
it's a huge game for them. Yeah,
because they have lacked that one win where they say, okay, we beat somebody who's definitely in the field. Because right now, I think their best win is over Michigan at home, which not great. Considering we thought what Michigan actually ended up being here, but you go on the road, you beat Duke in Coach K's last game. They're gonna. I don't care what they do in the AC tournament. They're gonna be in the field.
Yeah, I agree. That's almost a win in your in type game for them. So it's along with all the pomp and circumstance for Coach K, it's a big game for North Carolina. It's a must win for North Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be back next week. We'll be talking some conference tournaments here, give you some stuff to watch in each of these big tournaments here. So, Charles, thank you for all the time. Really appreciate it. Before I let you go, people follow social media, keep up with the Seeing Red podcast.
Definitely. Yeah, you can check me out on Twitter at Troy Mauriello. Last name is Mauriello. I do the Seeing Red podcast. We cover St. John's basketball. Been a tough season for the Red Storm, but we're still out there putting out one episode a week. So definitely check that out. I'll be at the Big East tournament this week as well. So definitely check out my preview and recap of that. And Mike, it's always a pleasure to be coming on.